Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone. A big warm welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where we celebrate you each and every week. We have over 35 shows to choose from, and this is one of my favorites, the United Kingdom News and Culture. It's episode 107. Can you imagine? I am joined by our incredible panel. Our dear friend Helena CHARD has the day off, so hello, Helena. We look forward to seeing you again soon. DIANN FLOYD is with us today, as always, and she has graced stages all across the world in so many different ways. She's having and has had such an incredible career as an international award-winning author. She also is, I think she's a movie star, actually. We're going to find out more, but she has been on so many stages with so many crowns and so many awards. Let's welcome DIANN to the show. Welcome.
Hi, Dr. Jacalyn. What a beautiful introduction. Thank you. I'm blushing.
Have you been in any movies, DIANN?
I have not been in any movies except for family movies. Those are the best anyway, right?
Absolutely. I think that's next for you, though, because you have done so much, and we don't really talk about all the things that you've done. We're going to bring out our dear friend Simon in a moment, but you not only are renowned for your writing and your publishing, but tell us about some of the things that you did before you are DIANN FLOYD International Award-winning author.
Oh, you're so sweet. Where do I start? At 10 years old, that's when I hit the stage and fell in love with it and knew I wanted to do things to make people smile and bring happiness to them. So that's when I got the stage bug, and I became a storyteller, just telling all kinds of stories and making people laugh. Fast forward, a classroom educator, telling stories in the classroom as well. And then I put my stories to print. A mom, humanitarian work in lots of different countries, especially in 3 different countries in Africa. So that was pretty incredible too, Dr. Jacalyn. So that's it in a real fast pace.
Bravo, DIANN. And of course, you brought so many people to our platform. I really do appreciate you. You're a dear friend and a wonderful person.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And you know, Simon MacDonald, our dear friend, he has also graced many stages in various capacities. And I know he's a phenomenal world-class chef. He's cooked for presidents. He cooked for the late Queen. And he also is a businessman. He's an entrepreneur. And he's also an author, as you know, because you're the one, I think, who really reached out and said, get this book published. And now he's moving forward with, I think, two more books. So let's welcome Mr. Simon MacDonald. Hello.
Hello, everybody. It's nice to be back and so on. Oh, okay, we're missing one today, but that can't be helped. But yes, I love your introductions. I mean, really makes our heads go that size. But,
well,
yes.
I apologize because sometimes I don't give the full introduction as I should because I'm so in production mindset. But today I'm not. I'm fully present. So.
Yeah, and yes, and DIANN, it's all your fault. It's really is. You got me into the into the authoring bit and the publishing bit and so on as well. So as I say, any awards that might come, if they ever do, it's all your fault.
Well, you're a blessing to the world.
Well, it's an absolute honor to be here with both of you today. You know, it's episode 107, and wow. It's great that we have so many episodes. It also scares me that time goes by so quickly. It really does. But one thing that doesn't change is how we work together so well. And of course, our friend Helena, we love you and miss you. But I just thank you for all the effort that you put into each and every episode that we have here.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. And Simon, you're always teaching us, and Helena brings us so much incredible news. And sometimes we have the late breaking news thanks to Helena.
It. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, no, she's quite a mine of information, but very well connected in London and in royal circles. So yes, we miss her.
So we surely do. And I just wanted to mention there's obviously a lot of news coming out about the royal family. And one thing I thought was very interesting is the focus is now on Harry, who went to see the king. I believe he had an audience with him for 45 minutes or an hour, and he's planning on going back. What are your thoughts about reconnecting and maybe coming together as a family?
Yeah, I mean, it would be lovely to see it happen. I think that there is a chance of reconnecting with King Charles, but sadly, I don't think there's a cat and hell's chance of him getting back with Prince William. There seems to be a very strong red line drawn under that one, and ne'er the twain shall meet. Which it is very sad because I mean, remember back in the day, oh goodness, I mean, it was not that long ago, I suppose, when Harry and Meghan got married, and they became known as the Fab Four, so taking the title from the Beatles. And they were there for the Fab Four. It just seemed to gel. It seemed to work very well. So yeah, it's so sad that they've come apart. But I think Harry's certainly finding his feet in the States, and Meghan as well. And so good luck to them. But they're not a good Scots expression. They're not short of a bob or two.
That's true.
So they'll muddle through somehow. Yeah, they really will. I think the sad bit is, of course, is that. They've got two children now as well with Archie and Lilibet, and Lilibet's never been over here. So will that happen? And I just feel extra sad because Her Majesty the Queen, who would be the great granny, never got a chance to see Lilibet. So. She's probably she'll be up there watching down as well, just making sure she doesn't abuse the name Lilibet, which of course was the late Queen's pet name, her nickname, really.
Yeah. You brought up some really good points, and I'd love to just have the two of you weigh in on how the discourse in one generation of the family then affects all of the others. And I know that happens in my family as well, where two people decide they're not going to talk anymore, and then the cousins are disjointed, and people are it's not like the Partridge Family, let's put it that way. So
now that's harking back a
day or two for sure. So what are your thoughts about that? So for the good of the family, should everybody just say, okay, and again, not should, but okay, we're going to forgive you, we're going to welcome you back, everything's going to be peaches and cream?
Yeah, it's very difficult because if you say, I'm doing it for the good of the family, it's a bit sort of martyrdom in a way. It's, you've not got to do it for the good of the family. It's got to be done out of the heart for the good of everybody. And if you're doing it, just trying to make the effort for the sake of the family, then your heart's not fully in it, by way of family love. So you just got to be so careful in how it's dealt with and how it's approached. I mean, they're not the only family that have got this problem. I mean, there are thousands of families everywhere that share the same problem as well. And I think possibly that a lot of other families will actually be taking a good, long, hard look at themselves as well and thinking, yeah, well, we've got this situation which is so similar. Let's just, lay down our swords and, and try and make things work. It would be lovely to think that might happen.
Those are really good points. My question for you, Simon, is it seems to me when you raise your kids in America, you learn what it is to be an American, and you also learn about the revolution through American eyes. And I've read many books written by the British about the revolution, and it was a real eye-opener. It was nice to get both perspectives. But if you're the royal family or you're connected to the royal family, it seems to me that you need to be in your home country if you're going to represent the royal family. How can American, because both kids are supposedly Americans now, how can Americans be representing the royal family? I don't understand how that could work.
Yeah, I think that's actually going to be quite difficult. It was spinning through my mind there when you're talking about the revolution. I mean, I think just about every country's had their revolutions or revolting people, as it might be flippantly put. But yes, as American children coming up with royal titles and understanding how the royal family ticks, or what the royal family is, what they do, the etiquette around it. I think that sort of thing will disappear out the window. I don't see Archie and Lilibet taking part in royal functions later on. I mean, they have the titles, which effectively it's almost like an honorary title to them. It's a title without the teeth, but they're still part of the family.
Yeah,
but they're being brought up and immersed totally right from the word go in a different country and a different culture and a different perspective on things. So, I think that's where ne'er the twain will meet. So it's a tricky situation.
Right. It is. And Diane, don't you recall this week, I think, that there's been press about Harry and Meghan wanting to reclaim or use their royal titles? What happened? What did you read?
Well, depending on where you read, they're not allowed to use those royal titles because in America, we don't honor those royal titles because we're supposed to be all equal. What I mostly read is that Harry's in trouble with his foundation, and there's a lot of problems with that. So I would think if the family tries to come together as a whole, now they have this other black mark, which has to do with Harry's foundation. That's the biggest thing that came across in one of the magazines. Yes. Maybe Simon knows more.
They're really the Duke and Duchess of Sussex now. So the Sussexes, which is
that's a tongue twister. But to Diane's point, they can't use those titles here in this country, right?
They're not supposed to.
I mean, I suppose they can use whatever titles they're entitled to, but which is the one that actually carries the weight? In the pecking order of things, you've got the king, you've got the queen, and then you've got prince and princess. But in between there's duke and duchess, which actually is on a par or parallel to prince and princess. So. They're referred to as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, or the Sussexes, and the Princess of Sussex. Yes, I mean you can have a heck of a job for that one. but the royal titles have been sort of dropped. I think they're probably more prevalent in this side of the Atlantic than they are on your side of the Atlantic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for that discussion. I always find that interesting. So what news are you hearing about anything going on there in the UK, Simon?
Well, there's been a heck of a lot going on my desk, that's for sure. But I know, as ever. But I know today, King Charles, he's come back from Sandringham, back to London and to Windsor. To have his first in-person engagement today with the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. So this is his first in-person meeting or engagement since his cancer diagnosis. So I would assume that all is going well there. We still don't know what type of cancer it is, and I don't think it's necessary that we do know. it's a personal thing. And I think, really that, personal things should be kept personal. And it's the same with Catherine as well, that with her surgery, it's a personal thing. So just let it stay personal and stop trying to work out what it is and coming up with suggestions which could then form a rumor and all the rest of the trouble. So so that's today's up to the minute news on King Charles. Last night, Prince of Wales, Prince William, he visited the British Red Cross headquarters, and he's deeply concerned about the conflict just now in Gaza, and he gave a superb, very diplomatic speech. There's been critics about it saying, oh, well, this is the royals now starting to get dabbling into politics. But no, I don't think it is. I really feel that what he did there with his speech about his deep concerns it came from the heart, and he's just looking for peace worldwide. How they get that peace, so long as it's done in a peaceful way and not in a bloody way, then fine. It's he's not dabbling in politics to my mind. He's just concerned about world peace. So that's actually all I've really got on the royals this week, because that we only found out recently that Helena's on holiday today, so that there we are. I was sort of scrabbling through, sort of thinking, where's a newspaper? I live a long way from a newspaper shop,
I'm sure there's interesting news going on in Scotland.
Yes, the government's always getting itself into trouble, and there's all sorts of things going on. There's a lot of it going on in the fisheries and aquaculture world, of course, which I can't reveal at the moment. But
darn.
There we are. Oh, there's there's the tantalizer for the day. But politically, the Scottish government is having its issues just now. There's the Scottish Nationalist Party, who are the party in power, are still pressing on and seem to be focusing very hard on the task of trying to gain independence for Scotland. I think at the moment there's far too many other issues got to be addressed, urgent issues addressed, rather than going down the route trying to look at becoming an independent Scotland just now. We've got a lot of problems to deal with: cost of living, fuel costs, etc. All that's got to be looked at very carefully. So that's Scotland just now. We're holding our heads above water.
Well, that's good.
We've had an awful lot of it coming down the way this last few days, and today, this morning, the heavens opened, and I thought, no, the tide's not coming in today; it's coming down. So
we need the tide to come down here a little bit.
Well, I was speaking to a client earlier on today, and we were talking about Dubai. I mean, Dubai has had some horrific rains and big flooding. Dubai is a place where I thought, does it ever rain there? But they've had it. They've had it in bucket loads. So it's nice to see that Scotland is at least being caring and sharing. And say, you can have some in our rain. You're welcome.
Well, the good news is it's not snow, right? That would be worse.
The snow in Dubai, I think, was probably stretching the imagination a little bit. I mean, it'd be very muddy down. It would be some sandy coloured snow. It'd be a bit odd. But they've got the water. So I suppose on the plus side of that, then there will be a lot of greenery around Dubai. When all the biblical floods subside. So when you get a good rainstorm like that in an arid area, then everything comes into bloom, and grass comes up, and weeds come up, and everything comes up. So it's not a bad thing at times.
One of bad things.
I was just reading, I think this story was U.S. focused, about the number of golf courses that we have, and that when whomever determines that the golf course needs to be laid to rest, so to speak, that it becomes sort of a wild sanctuary for nature. So I'm just wondering, what's the situation with the golf courses over there? Because you have a lot of golf courses in Scotland, don't you?
Well, I mean, Scotland is the home of golf.
Yes.
And I would say that every golf course, when you go around and you see the way some people play and the frustration they've got, they're already wild sanctuaries. I mean, you hear words uttered in the golf course which are, not even in the English language yet, and certainly nothing to do with golf. So that I know through personal experience as well. I mean, I play golf allegedly. My handicap is the ball, and the club comes a pretty close second to that. But it's an interesting game. A lot of people say it's a very good way to ruin a good walk, and to some people, I can understand that. But I find it's good escapism. It's actually surprisingly good exercise. But sailing is still my passion, and you can't play golf in the ocean. Although I'm in the Arctic, one of my the engineers on my ship was a very keen golfer, and before we'd sail off from Scotland back up to the Arctic again, he'd have a huge big bag full of golf balls. And I've seen him, and it's blowing old boots, and he's using putty to stick the golf ball onto the deck and then whack it over the side and so on. In an Arctic gale, I mean, it's a sight to behold, and it's difficult to imagine, but when you see it, it's quite extraordinary. And I've seen it blowing so hard. He's hit that ball out good and hard over the side, and then the wind catches it and throws it almost straight back again. So golf goes everywhere.
Well, I've seen on some courses where they actually have one of the holes is out in the water. It's obviously on land. There's a little island that's out there, and I thought
famous one in Augusta.
Okay, is that where it is?
Yes. But a lot of the holes here, well, it depends on the weather of the day, whether they're in water or on an island or not. That can change on the hour. But I remember playing golf in South Africa, and when I was living out there for 5 years, and you always have a caddy there to carry your clubs and so on like that. That's just part of it. And I'd smacked the ball, and and it cracked into this tree, and the tree just rained monkeys. I mean, there were dozens of them came pouring out in the branch of this tree and disappeared, grabbed the ball out of the way, and then went back up the top. I don't know whether they ate it or what, or threw it at somebody. And so that was it. So I thought, well, I'm not going to get that one back. And then another shot, I got into the rough again. This story of my life, the ball goes into the long grass. And I was about to go in and get it. And my caddy said, no, sir, don't go in there. Don't go in there. I said, what, monkeys? He said, no, snakes. And I thought, ooh. And where it was, I mean, Cape cobras and puff adders and so on, they're really not very friendly creatures. So the ball goes into the rough there, you just leave it.
They're like, what are you doing on my land? I was here first.
Yeah. And baboons was the other problem as well. The courses there, and one of the championship courses I played there was just full of baboons. A lot of them were actually golfers, but they were baboons as well.
They transformed into baboons. Maybe that explains all the iguanas, Diane. I don't know.
Maybe so. I've been around hundreds of baboons.
Golfing iguanas, yes.
The baboons will leave you alone, but if all of a sudden you scare them, you're toast.
You just have to act totally confident.
Yeah, and just
Hey, baboon.
Be very still.
Yeah. High five, baboon. Yeah.
I won't with hand your hand though. I mean, that was one thing where where I lived in the town of Nyesna. There were quite a lot of baboons around there, and they were a big problem. And nothing was safe, and you couldn't leave your windows open. Even if you were in the house, you couldn't leave the door or the windows open if you were in an area that was bad with baboons, because they'd be straight in. And even though the window is open just a little crack, and you've got security bars in the windows, well, Mama baboon comes along and pushes the baby baboon in through the crack in the window. The baby baboon is trained to pick up all the food and so on it can muster and carry it back out to mum sitting outside. And that happened to me once as well. And I went into the kitchen. It was like a war zone. And this baby baboon obviously got in, and there was a trail of flour and eggs and so on, all the way up on the windowsill and down to the outside and the back. And I thought, oh, yeah. So I learned my lesson the hard way that day.
I mean, I think you could turn that into a children's book.
I guess, I think so too. I was just thinking a circus act too.
Yeah, well, trying to write it without bad feeling towards the baboons would actually be quite difficult, I think.
Well, I'm really enjoying our conversation, but I know Simon put a lot of work and effort into his presentation for today. So, Simon, are you ready?
I'm ready to go. Yes. Well, last week we did a piece on Lord Lovat. And of course, I was pointed out at the very end of it, Lord Lovat, in actual fact, was my godfather. So it was a very sort of personal thing. And also, my father fought alongside him during the war, particularly up in the Lofoten Islands and north of Norway with Number 4 Commando. So, it was a very personal thing. And Lord Lovat, I mean, he was famous for being really quite an eccentric gentleman in many ways. And he was very wealthy and owned a huge estate of some 250,000 acres in just north of Inverness. And so Lord Lovat, he had his own personal piper. And this piper had to go everywhere that Lord Lovat was. And that included the Normandy landings and so on. So his piper, I've met him, Bill Millen. He's sadly passed away in 2010, but he was a lovely gentleman, very softly spoken, a real character, but at the same time, he was sort of unassuming and very modest. So he was just a lovely, lovely gentleman and an amazing piper as well. So here we go with Bill Millen, the piper, and he was sometimes referred to as the Mad Piper of Normandy. Anyway, it was the evening of Monday, the 5th of June, 1944, and there was an armada of almost 5,000 ships that stood off the south coast of England, primed for the greatest amphibious invasion in history. The long-awaited liberation of the Nazi-occupied Europe by the British, American, Canadian armies was then starting. And at one of many embarkation docks, Warsash, at the mouth of the River Hamble in Hampshire, the commandos of the crack 2,500 strong British 1st Special Service Brigade clambered aboard 22 landing craft that would take them across the English Channel to Normandy. One of the soldiers was a boyish-looking, unassuming William or Bill Millen, who was the personal bagpiper of Simon Fraser, 15th Lord Lovat, the brigade's handsome, charismatic commander. So, wearing battle-dress tunic and the kilt of the Clan Cameron, Millen stood in the bow and took his pipes out of their box and started playing the Scottish air Road to the Isles as the landing craft steamed out of the Solent and into the English Channel. A sailor had actually relayed the music over the ship's loud hailer, and the sound carried across the water. So sailors and troops on other landing ships all cheered, and they threw their helmets into the air, and morale was getting high. Nearby warships joined in the impromptu refrain, and 2 Royal Navy Hunt-class destroyers played Hunting We Will Go over their loud hailers, and the Free French destroyers responded with the Marseillaise, so it became quite a musical event. The only bagpiper and the only kilted soldier in the powerful armada of the 21-year-old Bill Millen was to become a singular figure in D-Day history. Bill Millen, well, he was born in Glasgow on July the 14th, 1922, the son of a policeman. The family, then they moved to Canada and lived there for a few years before returning to Scotland. Young Bill Millen attended schools in Glasgow. Then he enlisted in the Territorial Army and joined the 7th Battalion Pipe Band of the Highland Light Infantry. After being transferred to the Cameron Highlanders, he volunteered in 1941 for the newly formed British Commandos. Bill met Lord Lovat while he was undergoing rigorous combat training at Achnacarry Castle near Fort William. Achnacarry Castle is the clan home of the Clan Cameron, and the Sir Donald Cameron of Lochiel and Lady Margaret Cameron were also very great friends of my parents as well, and they also got involved in the Lovat Scouts, and they also formed a little group together. So Achnacarry Castle, as I say, is near Fort William in the northwest Scottish Highlands. Lovat, who was the 24th hereditary chief of the Clan Fraser, also had joined the Commandos in 1941. And he would become one of the legendary figures of World War II, distinguishing himself in commando raids on the German-held Norway coast and the Lofton Islands in December 1941, and during the raid in Dieppe in France on 1942. Winston Churchill actually called Lovat, and I quote, "the handsomest man who ever cut a throat." So that says a lot about Lord Lovat. At Achnacarry, Lovat invited Millen to become his Batman, and the young soldier turned down the offer, so Lovat agreed instead to take him on as his personal piper. The War Office had banned bagpipers from leading troops into action after the great losses on the Western Front in World War I. But Lovat, descended from a long line of Scottish warriors, had a mind of his own. And he said, but that's the English War Office, he told Millen with a sly twinkle. You and I are both Scottish, so that rule doesn't apply to us. So early on Tuesday, June the 6th, 1944, the Allied Armada stood off the Normandy coast. It was a rough crossing for the troops aboard the landing ships. Most of them were so seasick they really couldn't wait to get ashore, no matter what danger awaited them. Piper Millen was no exception. And being seasick and with bagpipes at the same time, it just blows the mind, that one does. But anyway, he had quoted to have said, "I didn't care what was going on ashore," he reported. "I just wanted to get off that bloody landing craft." I don't blame him. These landing craft do rock and roll a bit. Swords Beach, well, it was the objective of Major General Thomas G. Rennie's British 3rd Infantry Division, which comprised 27th Armour Brigade, several infantry brigades, the British Commandos, Captain Philippe Kiefer's Free French Commandos, and Lord Lovat's brigade as well. So, although Lovat's men were wet and seasick and nervous, their morale was high, and as their landing craft drew abreast of the cruiser HMS Scylla, which was the flagship of Rear Admiral Philip Vane, the commandos gave thumbs-up salutes, and looking down on them, an 18-year-old able seaman, Ronald Northwood, pronounced them the finest set of chaps I've ever come across. So, bucking in heavy seas, the landing craft moved into the 3-mile-long Sword Beach shortly after 7 a.m. The division's main objective was to link up with Major General Windy Gale's British 6th Airborne, or the Red Devils Division, who had just dropped just after midnight to secure 2 bridges at Benneville, 6 miles inland. The bridges were codenamed Pegasus over the Caen Canal and Horsa over the River Orne. The paratroopers were the first Allied troops in action on D-Day, in fact, and were holding the spans against German counterattacks. The task of reaching the bridges fell to Lord Lovat's brigade. So Lord Lovat's brigade, they went ashore under fire near Colleville. His commandos had discarded helmets at the last moment, as they would normally do, and donned their distinctive green berets, complete with the regimental cap badges and the motto which said, "Je suis prêt," I am ready. And of course, Piper Millen was glad because Lovat, over 6 feet tall, would show how deep the water was. And the man just behind Lovat, unfortunately, received a bullet in the face and collapsed. Millen jumped into the water up to his armpits, and the cold shocked him as his kilt spread around him. The man behind him was also hit and sank into the sea. So as Millen floundered towards the beach, Lovat shouted, "Give us Highland Laddie, man." So shivering and waist deep in the water, Millen started playing his pipes as he struggled through the surf, armed only with his bagpipes and his ski-and-do. Now, the ski-and-do is that knife you wear down the sock and your kilt. And I have one here as well, which is hiding behind the photograph at the moment. So I'll show it as soon as there we are. So that's a ski-and-do. Actually, my son made this one specifically for me. So it's a 4-inch blade. The ski-and-do, it's got 2 translations from the Gaelic language. One is Black Death, and then the other one is Hidden Knife. And originally, the ski-and-do would be concealed about the body, but later, as people started wearing the kind of kilts we wear today, then it would be tucked down the sock as well, so it would be still partly on show. So that was his only armament, apart from the bagpipes, which could have caused more damage than anything else, I suppose. Anyway, the bagpipes heartened Lovett, who turned and gave Millen a thumbs-up signal. When he reached the water's edge, Millen could hardly believe his ears when his commander, standing on the sand with the brigade major, asked him if he would mind piping for the rest of the commanders ashore with the road to the Isles. So amid the thump of mortars and the rattle of machine gun fire, Millen strode coolly back and forth along the beach, playing his pipes while men streamed past him. Most of the astonished soldiers on the beach cheered and waved when they heard the pipes. And some saying, oh, that's the stuff, Jock, yelled one commander. But some soldiers on Shore Beach regarded it as insane behaviour. And from then on, Bill Millen was known as the Mad Piper. So one D-Day veteran, Tom Duncan, recalled, "I shall never forget hearing the skirl of Bill Millen's pipes. It's hard to describe the impact it had. It gave us a great lift and increased our determination, as well as the pride we felt, and it reminded us of home and why we were fighting there for our lives and those of our loved ones." So on the beach, Lord Lovett handed his short magazine Lee Enfield rifle to a young soldier who had lost his in the surf, and from then onward was armed with only a 45 caliber Colt pistol and a long notched wading stick. A wading stick was a long stick with notches on it at different lengths, which deer stalkers would carry on the hill. So when they're going over peat bogs and so on, they put the stick in and they know how deep the water is beneath them. So he took his wading stick with him to war. So after helping to knock out German machine gun nests and mortar emplacements in Sword Beach, Lovett's commanders made their way inland. Lord Lovett and his men had been ordered to reach the paratroopers at the bridges without delay, avoiding confrontations with the enemy. And the brigade had to cover 6 miles in 3.5 hours. So Lovett was determined to get there on time, having promised General Gale that he would be at the bridges sharp at noon. Lovett knew that the men holding the 2 vital bridges were hanging on by their fingernails with ammunition running low and an armoured counterattack feared at any minute. So when Lord Lovett's command arrived to the skirl of Bill Millen's bagpipes, he apologised for reaching the airborne troops a bit late. With Lovett striding along, casually twirling his wading stick, and Bill Millen playing his pipes, the commanders trudged on towards Boehnville, exposed and always keeping a sharp lookout for snipers. As they approached the Caen Canal, German fire opened up. Millen stopped playing, and the other commanders threw themselves flat on the ground, except for Lord Lovett, who went down just on one knee. And spotting a sniper scrambling down a tree and trying to hide in a cornfield, Lovett killed him with a single rifle shot. He then sent 2 men to look for him, and they returned with the body almost as if it was a Highland stag. Lovett then turned to Millen and told him, "Right, Piper, start the pipes again and keep playing as long as you can until we get to Boehnville. The airborne at the bridges there, and when they hear the pipes, they'll know we're coming." So Millen started skirling blue bonnets over the border, and the commanders marched on. After crossing marshy ground, fire and clearing 2 enemy bunkers, they eventually approached the bridges, and troops on the other side of the canal bridge signalled that it was under sniper fire. In his foxhole near the approaches to the Caen Canal Bridge, Private William Gray, a 19-year-old Bren gunner, glanced at his wristwatch, and his friend Private John Wilkes was lying beside him. Then, during a lull in the firing, Wilkes suddenly said, "I think I hear bagpipes." After a few more seconds, Wilkes turned and insisted, "I do hear bagpipes." And now Gray could hear them too. So the beleaguered paratroopers' spirits, they soared as they saw a welcome sight in the distance of Lord Lovett's commandos marching purposefully along the dusty road towards them. And at the head of the column was the imperturbable Piper Millen, still playing blue bonnets over the border. On both sides, the firing then suddenly ceased, and Major Howard's men gazed at Lovett's men marching in full view and led by Millen playing his pipes. But the euphoria didn't last long, because as the commandos started crossing the canal bridge, German sniper fire opened up again. Lovett ordered Millen to shoulder his pipes and play the column over. Halfway across, Millen turned around to look at Lord Lovett, and He was striding along as if he was out for a walk around his estate, Bill recalled later. And he gave me the signal to carry on. Well, Millen was just trusting to his luck that he didn't get hit, as he couldn't hear very much because of the drones of his pipes. He said later, it seemed like a very long bridge. Millen's pipes were damaged by shrapnel later that day, but remained playable. And exposed and unarmed, he was surprised not to have been shot. So when he mentioned it later to some Germans who were taken prisoner, they told him that they hadn't actually fired at him because they assumed he had gone totally mad with battle fatigue, so they left him alone. So disregarding enemy fire, the paratroopers raised a cheer and rushed out from cover to greet Lovett's men. It was a stirring moment for Major Howard's exhausted men. Lord Lovett shook hands with Howard, remarked that they had made history that day, and apologised for being a few minutes late. The commandos dug in along the crash-landed remains of the Major Howard's big Horsa gliders and set up their Bren guns. Their objective was Caen, 7 miles inland from Sword Beach, and soon to become the scene of some of the bloodiest fighting in the Normandy campaign. The Commando Brigade had suffered heavy casualties by now, and while getting ready to hand over his sector to the 51st Highland Division, Lord Lovett was severely wounded by fragments from a German shell exploding nearby. A priest had actually administered the last rites, but a swift blood transfusion, some penicillin, and the warrior's hardy constitution actually pulled him through. And as he was being carried off the field, Lovett sent a message to his men saying, "I can rely on you lot not to take one step backwards," and they complied, of course. The first Special Service Brigade was in action in Normandy for 10 weeks and suffered almost 1,000 casualties before being withdrawn. Piper Millen, unscathed despite his frequent exposure to enemy fire, he was with it when it returned to England in September 44. He then went on with number 4 Commando to Holland and finished the war at Lübeck in Germany in 1945. So after being demobilised in 1946, Bill Millen accepted an offer from Lord Lovett to work on his sprawling Highland estate, but life there actually proved to be too quiet for the restless D-Day bagpiper, so he joined up with a touring theatre troupe and skirled on the stage in London, Stockton-on-Tees, and in Belfast, Northern Ireland as well. So in the late 1950s, Bill Millen trained in Glasgow as a registered mental nurse and worked in 3 city hospitals. He married Margaret Mary Dowdall in 1954, and they had a son. And then Bill Millen, he and his wife and family moved to Devonshire in 1963 and worked at the Langdon Hospital in the coastal town of Dwalish until his retirement in 1988. He played his pipes during several hikes across Dartmoor organised by the Army, and also gave some lectures in the United States about his experiences on D-Day as well. A statue of D-Day piper Bill Millen stands near the shoreline at Sword Beach, and Millen earned lasting fame with his display of courage. Piper Millen received mention in the Cornelius Ryan's best-selling 1959 book, The Longest Day, and his exploits were depicted in Darrell F. Zanuck's epic 1962 film of the same name, The Longest Day. The part of Millen was portrayed by Pipe Major Leslie de Lapsey, the official piper to the Queen Mother, and Lord Lovett was played by Peter Lawford. Bill Millen, he played the lament at Lord Lovett's funeral in 1995. I was there, and I think it was the most moving piece of music I've ever heard in my life. And he donated his Cameron kilt and his bagpipes to the National War Museum in Edinburgh. And predeceased by his wife, the skirling Scottish hero died at the age of 88 on August the 17th, 2010. He is survived now by his son. Meanwhile, plans were started in 2010 to memorialise Piper Millen in France when the mayor of Colleville-Montgomery, a town on Sword Beach, offered a site for a life-size statue near the spot where he went ashore on June the 6th, 1944. It stands today as a lasting tribute to Bill Millen, a real hero and a real gentleman. And a friend.
Wow. Wow. That was amazing. I'm always amazed at, I know, incredible, right?
Yes.
And how bagpipers, they're so brave. I mean, They are not.
No, he was so passionate about his music.
It's
And
just,
when you're playing the pipe, I used to play the pipes many years ago. I wouldn't call myself brave, but I'm probably brave to play them, particularly if you're playing in English soil. But
You have them there at your home?
when you play the pipes, and they're up over your shoulder here, the drones are, well, I mean, the bagpipes are pretty loud. Well, you've got those drones right next to you. I mean, you won't hear any gunfire, really. It's so you just get carried away in the music, and you just march up and down, and that's it. But to go onto the Normandy beaches with the gunfire, I mean, it was like a scythe. It was horrific. I mean, there were 6,000 men killed on Sword Beach alone. That 3 Mile
wow.
beach, 6,000 people died. Bill Millen didn't get a scratch. And again, the order had been passed down apparently through the German forces: don't shoot the piper. He's crazy. He's mad. He's not a threat to us. But in actual fact, because the way he set the morale so high with the troops, he was a very serious threat, and and he played a very important part by the morale boosting in getting the troops ashore and making them reach their objective. And Lord Lovat wouldn't have had any other way anyway. I mean, Lord Lovat, the perfect Highland gentleman, and he takes his wading stick, which would use for deer stalking, ashore there. He just never lost sight of his Highland estate, and so to him, going out, into a battlefield, to him it was like going deer stalking. So he had an answer for everything, and he approached life very calmly, and he was an extraordinary person.
Well, I really appreciate all the work that you put into giving us that story and sharing that with us, and the photographs as well. Thank you, Simon.
Yeah, very
well,
incredible.
it's an honor and a privilege to be able to to relay both Lord Lovat's story and Bill Millen's story. I mean, they are two incredible heroes, the pair of them. And I think Bill Millen is the real unsung hero behind that as well, because, Lovat led the men, but Bill Millen led Lovat and led the morale and gave everybody high spirits, which went a long way to the success of it.
I was going to say it's the morale that keeps you going. So
Absolutely.
very powerful.
Yeah.
Though today, people,
that was
they
the
don't
very
hear them coming.
Yeah, and from the very moment when they left the River Hamble, going down the Solent into the English Channel to go across, he was piping pretty much, all the way across, apart from the moments when he was having to throw up over the side because he suffered dreadfully from seasickness, as did an awful lot of them. I mean, it must be an absolute horrendous journey across there. So there we go. Anyway, I've got a few on this days, because this has become a bit of a weekly thing. So still on the battlefront there, on this day in 1746, in the 45 Jacobite risings in Scotland, British forces surrendered Inverness Castle to Bonnie Prince Charlie and the Jacobite army. Now, I gave a talk about Bonnie Prince Charlie there just the other week, so I'm not going to ask you questions on it. You may have remembered it. Then in 1972, Richard Nixon became the first US president to visit China, normalizing relations between the countries, and a meeting with the Chinese leader Mao Zedong in Beijing. For birthdays, we've got Scott Kelly, age 59. Happy birthday, Scott. He's the American astronaut born in Orange in New Jersey. And then he was from, 1964. I'm just trying a quick mental calculation there. So 1964 he was born. For deaths, we've got Billy Graham, 2018, the American Baptist evangelist, described as one of the 20th century's most influential Christian leaders, and he died at the age of 99. So there we have for On This Day.
Well, thank you very much, Simon. Always wonderful to hear the latest updates and who's with us and who isn't any longer. So thank you. And thanks for the presentation that you shared with us today. Diane, what would you like to say before we sign off today?
I want to thank Simon. That was just, you always have incredible wisdom to share with us. And biographies of people, and I just really appreciate how you put all that time and effort into it. I want them to become a book one day as well, you know.
Well, there is a book. My next book is actually on my father's exploits during the war around the time of the Battle of Cassino. He was there, and he wrote a diary in that few months when he was there, and his diary, it wasn't written in a book like a normal diary. It was on scraps of paper, any scraps of paper he could find. So I've got these scraps of paper, and it's incredible reading. What people were actually going through at that time. It was the Battle of Cassino was the highest casualty rate of any battle in the Second World War. And it was just about the highest casualty rate of any battle from the First World War as well. It was a terrible, terrible time. So I've got these original war diaries. So that is going to be done in book form, and with a prologue and epilogue on it as well, giving a bit about him and the connection with Lord Lovat as well. There we are. That's today's pilot.
Exciting.
There you go. Thank you.
It's very different. It's very different to a rhyme and time for children, isn't it?
Very different, very different. I also want to thank you, Simon, for talking about or actually bringing to our attention that Prince William talked about peace and Gaza and everything. I'm going to try to look for that speech. That's wonderful, because Dr. Jacalyn and Simon, as you know, my word for this year is kindness and love. And so I'll close with, everyone try to bring a little bit of kindness in the world that you live in.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you, DIANN. Well, we are out of time as our next show is just about to begin. So thank you for being here today on the United Kingdom News and Culture. We look forward to seeing you next week for episode 108. In the meantime, please stay tuned to Global Social Entrepreneurs with Ann Scotland, followed by the Royally Rich Lifestyle Show. That's all we have for today. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
The last few days have been really amazing. I had the trainer course from the British School of Etiquette.
And I must say it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made and one of the best investments I've made in my own training and development.
Now, words alone will not describe the transformation and the positive path that I have traveled with the British School of Etiquette.
I found I learned a lot from the lessons this time I came.
The last few days with the British School of Etiquette have been fantastic.
And what I've learned now is really beyond my expectations.
This is the most rewarding experience and the best investment I have made this year.
It was just great. I learned so much, and when I go back to Belgium I will incorporate a lot of it into my day-to-day life and business.
It's been absolutely wonderful for the whole week that we were here.
I feel transformed, and I feel like blowing a trumpet and tell people, come and do this school, this class is the best, this is the best school ever.
You should take it. It will change your life immediately.
I am now able to teach other people how to bring the best of them.
Thank you.
Thank you, peace.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Fostering better personal and professional relationships. Module 8, Mastery in Dining Etiquette. Building your confidence to perfect the subtleties of dining with finesse, enhancing your social savviness at any table. Step into the Polished Professional program where poise, elegance and excellence aren't just taught, they're instilled for life. Join us to redefine your potential and polish your professional edge.
To learn more, go to thebritishschoolofexcellence.com. The British School of Excellence are investors in people. Let us invest in you.